Hello and welcome back to episode 4 of Chess Principles You Must Know. In last 3 episodes, we have discussed some 16 principles that I am confident might have helped you to play a better game. In today's episode, we are going to look at some advanced principles that will help you play a better middle game. Let's get started. Principle number 17. Place your pawns on the opposite color squares as that of the bishop. Now have a look at this position. What do you think? Which bishop is better placed? The black bishop, right? Because it is beautifully placed alongside these diagonals. And all the pawns are on the light color square, none of is blocking the way of this bishop. Now look at the white bishop. The white bishop is on the dark color square and all of the pawns are on the dark color squares. This bishop cannot go to good squares. This bishop is not having too many good squares to go to. And that's why it is generally a good practice to place your pawns on the opposite color squares as that of the bishop. Principle number 18. Exchange your passive piece with your opponent's active piece. Looking at the same example, this piece is now a passive piece because it's not having too many squares to go to, while your opponent's bishop is an active piece. If you get a chance to exchange it, nothing like that. Place your bishop to b4. This is a forced exchange, otherwise this rook will be lost if it moves. So he capture, you capture back, and now you can further improve your position by going rook to c7. Remember, in last principles we have seen the rook on the open file, and that too on the 7th rank is a good thing to do. Looking at the principle number 19. Improve your least active piece. Now look at this position. The rook on the a1 is well placed. It is in the semi-open file. All these 4 minor pieces are active pieces. The only piece which is not doing much, is not contributing much in the game is the rook on the f1 square. So improve your least active piece. How can we do that? Just move the rook to d1. The time we play our rook to d1, it is now in the open file. Whenever we move the bishop, we can try to exchange, trade the rook on the d file. Principle number 20. Exchange when your position is cramped. Now look at this position. Both the knights are doing good. So both the bishops are also doing very well. They are active. But whilst both the bishops are cramped, they don't have any good square to go to. If a position is cramped, exchange. The time you exchange, the position gets open. Here you can exchange the knight with the bishop. He captures it back and you can exchange the bishop for the bishop as well. Now if you place your knight to b3, look at this position for white. It is much more open now. The bishop is now having a diagonal to go to. The knight is well placed and this is a good position for white to play. Principle number 21. Identify opponent's weak squares and punish them. For example, have a look at this. When the pawn comes to e5, the square on d5 and d6 is a weak square. What are the weak squares? Weak squares are those squares which cannot be attacked by the pawn. Since the e pawn and c pawn has been pushed forward, d5 and d6 now are the weak squares. Principle number 22. Occupy weak squares with your minor pieces. And in this position, what we can do? Place our knight to d5. None of the black pawns can attack our knight and our knight is very well placed over there. Principle number 23. Get your knights on the outpost. Outposts are those squares which are in your opponent's camp and cannot be attacked by the pawns but are protected by your own pawns. Like this d5 square. It is in the opponent's camp, cannot be attacked by his pawns and is protected by your own pawn. So knight is very well placed on the d5 square. Principle number 24. Challenge the weak squares. Now here, black can challenge the weak square which is d5 and d6 and also the knight is on the outpost on the d5 square. He can challenge it by playing his knight to e7 and we can support our knight by going knight e to c3 because when the knight captures, we can capture it back with a knight. He captures, we can capture it back. He can challenge it further by playing his knight to f6 and now we can protect our outpost is when the minor pieces are placed on it, right? So place your bishop to c4. He captured and you can recapture it with your bishop. And this position is very good for white. I hope you enjoyed all the principles today and I'll see you again in the next video. Till then, please hit the like button. Thank you.